Lopez. I'm with an organization called Southwest Workers Union, also known as Centro por la Justicia. We are, for the purpose of time, I'm going to do the introduction as we wait for additional candidates to show up. That way we have as much time as we can for the actual discussion and conversation of this piece. I just wanted to do quick introduction and thank everybody that has been working to put on this mayoral candidate forum. And our goal, what brought us together, is really environmental justice, right? Protections for the people, the planet, and everything in between, right? Ensuring that where we work, where we play, where we pray, where we learn, where we work is safe and protected, and we all have access to our basic and natural needs. And I want to thank our coordinating committee, which was groups, people from different groups. So this is also one of the first times we're coming together to work. So I'm really proud of all of the coordinating committee that was able to come through and support on this event. So we have the Wild Farm, Public Citizen, Mothers Rebellion, Southwest Workers Union, Move Texas, and Deceleration, who made up almost weekly calls the past few weeks. And then we have a group of co-sponsors, which include Society of Native Nations, Esperanza Peace and Justice Center, Sierra Club Lone Star Chapter, Gardopia Gardens, and Fuerza Unida, who you could also see up there, as well as Climate Justice San Antonio, which is a umbrella coalition of various groups here in San Antonio, Texas. And so, right, so as we begin, I want to drop a few guiding principles, right, and values that we want to hold. One of them is we want to be respectful of people's time. We want to make sure that each speaker has the allocated time that they'll have, and then we're actually adding an additional candidate to this piece, so that means some of those time allocations have been reduced, and so we're trying to work through them as well. We want to ensure that the audience has a time to ask any of the questions, so the format for that is at the front desk. There will be some cards available for people to, right here and right here, for people to write down the question. That way we could get through as many questions as we can. The main goal is to ensure we have the amount of time that we have, we get as many people sharing their questions and their thoughts as we kind of culminate today. And of course, this is just an opening conversation, right? We still got another month or so, less than a month, to continue some of these dialogues and conversations, right? And so, and so at 7 p.m. is actually the cutoff time. So if you get inspired by some of the conversations that are happening, you have till 7 p.m. to write down or jot down a question, and we'll be collecting those as well to be able to make sure that we get as many through. Logistical questions, restrooms are located downstairs right at the entrance. You just keep going through that hallway, you'll find restrooms. There is bottled water downstairs, as well as if you brought your container, there's water, what are they called? Water fountains, both upstairs and downstairs. If you get inspired and want to sit on the balcony, the stairs are right here. You're more than welcome. And I think that culminates some of the explanations and questions that we have. Many of the questions will go by, we'll start at the end, and then we'll alternate. So the first question will start at one end, and the second question will start at the other end. That way, each of the candidates who are at the extent is able to kind of present some of their conversations. And I believe that is it. And if there is anything that comes up, please let us know, and we'll try to address them as we can. And so I want to introduce Dr. Adelita Cantú, who graciously has been supportive of environmental justice, climate justice, public health work. And with that, I guess we we have to get started, right? Thank you.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out today. And since we are a little behind, I'll go ahead and get started with the first question. The candidates are up there, so I think everybody is familiar with them. So let me go with the first question, and this question will be from Ms. McCullough. And we are still going with 3 minutes, is that correct? We are still going with 3 minutes for each question, and once you answer, then I'll go down the line. Okay, so the first question is, San Antonio Climate Action and Adaptation Plan, which was approved by the City Council in 2019, is scheduled for an update this year. As mayor, what specific steps would you take to prioritize and accelerate implementation of the plan's strategies? How would you ensure equitable climate solutions that both mitigate the crisis and protect the most vulnerable residents, such as addressing extreme heating, flooding, or energy affordability, while still holding the city accountable for measurable outcomes? 3 minutes.
Okay, hi. So it is a team effort. So with being mayor comes working with each district and each city council person. So taking a look at what was already put into play and seeing if we need to adjust, which I think we do. Making sure that we make the right adjustments when it comes to whichever city council person is in charge of where the need is. So that is my thing, it's just working as a team, showing the community that we can work together. It is not about solely what I would do, it's about how I can lead people to make the right decisions for the community. So that is going to be my biggest thing, is working together with everybody. So
thank you. Ms. Rocha Garcia, 3 minutes.
Yes, hi everyone, and thank you for being here this Friday afternoon. We appreciate you all. One of the first things that I would love to do in the revisit of the 2019 plan is include some additional youth. I feel like youth have really grown up, making sure that they are very conscious about what they're doing to their environment. And I feel that that needs to be a little bit more work done. The other thing is that what happened with Uri, with Winter Storm Uri, and we know that we never want it to happen again, we were able to take some very key things, key learnings from that time. And it was 3 different areas that we looked at. I happened to be on that committee that unfortunately had to put together because of what happened. But so we had CPS Energy, we had SAWS on there, and then we had the EOC, the Emergency Operations Center. And so we had various recommendations. We made sure that we stayed on track, that they were implemented. Some of them cost a little bit more than the others, so it's going to take us a little bit more time to implement. But the point being that there are some there are some items on there that can be looked at and revisited, as well as we integrate into the new plan, into the new iteration of the Climate Action Adaptation Plan. The other thing that I would see is look at the benchmarks that we missed. Figure out why we missed them, look at how we could revisit them. The one silver lining in Uri, in the Winter Storm Uri, is that we were able to come together and see this is the type of investment that we need. We were able to identify how much money it would take. One of the things that we need to continue to be focused on is trying to make sure that our tax-exempt bonds don't go away. A lot of the infrastructure projects that we're using for some of the resilience that's needed for some of these, for instance, water drainage projects, etc., we are able to take advantage of every time that you all help us pass a bond. But right now, the federal government is trying to peek into that and trying to dictate what we do with those tax-exempt bonds. And so that's one other thing that we can do, is add a governmental affairs component. The legislative affairs component is going to be critical, especially in the environment that we're going into, especially as unfortunately things are cut, funding is shifted to other areas. And so those are some of the things that I would focus on, but bringing back again the community together to see what is critical, what is important, identifying things that need to be urgently prioritized in red, for instance, and they have the yellow and the green. But I really do think that it's the opportunity because of what has happened with COVID and with Uri. Our community is ready to listen and to act a little bit more than I think that they were ready to in 2019. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Ortiz Jones.
Yep. thanks again to Dr. Cantú for hosting, moderating rather. Thanks to our hosts, and thank you all for spending time. You know you're hardcore when you're here on a Friday afternoon. When I think about, before I talk about the plan, let me just explain how I kind of see this big picture, right? I mean, this is not only a public health issue as we talk about the impact on our kids. One of the number one reasons why our kids miss school is because of asthma. We're medically underserved, uninsured. On top of, some of our greatest employers in our community also are one of the most significant polluters, right? For example, the base. I think it's also really important that we think about the impact on our economy. You had SeaWorld, for example, be very clear about the impact of the high temperatures on the decrease of those that visited, and thus the decreased revenue in our community. So I think when we talk about this issue, we've got to talk about each of those things and really hold ourselves accountable. When I went to go review, the adaptation plan, for me, it's always about where are we in relation to where we want to be. So I looked at the plan, I looked at the most recent 2023 report. It's an 11-page kind of glossy marketing document. I'm just going to tell it to you straight. There weren't a lot of metrics nor progress toward those things. So I think if we are serious about this as a community, we have to be serious about the metrics that we are working toward, so that when we are talking about the bond, when we're talking about some of these other investments we want to make, we can explain to the community why these are the right investments and how they help us meet those goals, right? Everything from, again, the types of, when we're attracting types of businesses here, how can we also think about the economic development incentives in the context of the types of partnerships, collaborations, particularly as it relates to adaptation, mitigation, resilience. We should be incorporating that into every economic development conversation that we have, but I think being really clear about what we're working toward is where it must start, and certainly that requires a community discussion. So I look forward to partnering with many of the folks in this group to ensure that that document is strategic, is long enough in its time horizon, and actually has measurable metrics that we can work toward and show progress toward over time.
Thank you. Ms. Havrda.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm Adelita Havrda. Thank you so much for spending your time with us here tonight and really for this opportunity. I grew up on the west side of San Antonio, not too far from Memorial Library is where I was born. And what we've seen in our history, although we have a very rich history as San Antonians, we also have a very a history of environmental racism, frankly. We have, look at where industrial zones were built, look where highways were built, look, redlining, going down, and we're going to go back that far. And so there's a long history that we really have to overcome. And I think that what we need to do is be very intentional about that. And I say we, I don't just mean the council and mayor, but I'm talking about the entire community. My entire race for mayor, and really my time on council has been led by community always. So when we talk about environmental changes for the CAP was one of my first votes in 2019. I think I was maybe in office a month or two. And it was championed by a former councilwoman, Ana Sandoval. And I'll tell you, when she left, the truth is that this mayoral administration just did not prioritize the climate action plan. That's just the truth. So our next mayor has to prioritize it. So that's what will be the big change, is prioritizing it, focusing on it. We do have an Office of Sustainability, but Denver has specifically a Climate Action Office. I don't know if y'all are familiar with that, but they have implemented, just since 2020, some real changes that have made real impacts already on their communities. One is the green workforce development. Another are just rebates for vehicles for green vehicles. And that's not easy to do with our budget, but again, we have to focus on these things. Focusing on green, I call them green top, but there's a more fancy word for bus stops that have roofs and you put greenery on top. But things like that, because going back to the social inequities that we suffer from, we have some neighborhoods that have higher instances of asthma, higher instances of heat-related illness. So how I see the CAP when I first was elected and voted for it was as kind of a framework of a house. And I said, there's not a lot in this house. And I was told, no, it's a framework. So I'll tell you something, it's still a framework. There's no drywall, there's no flooring, there's no roof on this house. And so being very intentional about building this house with community is how we have to grow this CAP. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Alvarado.
Santos Alvarado, thank you for the invite. Okay, let me look at the question real fast, okay? I don't want to get out the subject. In English, please. I can read Spanish, but I can read German too. Okay, it's okay. It's all right. I'm gonna start like this, okay? When it comes to flooding the streets and the sewage problems, who was here was around in the 60s when we had no drainage and we had problems there. So it's been around since the 60s, am I correct? Now here we are, 60 years later, and we still have the same problems. Means that something's not being done, okay? Because I was born and raised in the West Side, okay? We had no sidewalks. I mean, when it rained, and I had to walk to school in the puddles. I used to go to school wet, okay? So I've been around. Okay, I went to Edgewood High School. I went to Edgewood Independent School District until I dropped out of school and joined Martin, okay? But that's not the problem. So we need to find out what we can do to make the city better when it comes to drainage, how we can use the rainwater and reuse it again. I don't know if they do that here. I know I just moved back from Germany, and everything they order for the environment, they reuse everything, rainwater. I mean, they grow trees. And you'd be surprised if you take a trip to Europe, especially in Germany, you see they have nice trees, okay? When it comes to traffic, even the traffic, okay, everything just about the public transportation is either all hybrid or electric, okay? Cars, they pollute, they're not allowed into the city limits because they all have different stickers. So we need to keep up with the world when it comes to technology. And I think this is what fails, and this is what the failure here in the United States, and in Texas. We need to keep up with the world because of technology and environment. Because all we're doing is destroying the world. Okay, our kids, your kids, I'm gonna say, your grandkids won't be around. Okay, to enjoy the world. Okay, right now they're thinking about when they want to go to the moon or to Mars because it's gonna be clean air. You can't step outside the little bubble because you can't breathe. So we need to save our planet rather than go to the moon or to Mars. Because it's your grandkids' future to live here. My life is over. I'm 67 years old, okay? And I intend to outlive my mother and my older sister at 84, okay? But I want to be around for this world to catch up with technology and keep up with the world. Join the world. Explore what other worlds are doing to help the environment. Thank you.
Thank you. And we're gonna go back up. Hi.
Hello.
We're going to go back up to Mr. Altamirano.
Yeah, Altamirano.
And
Can I answer your question?
You can.
Thank you,
You
Doctor.
don't need to read it. You got it.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you. My name is Beto Altamirano, running for mayor of San Antonio. Es un gusto estar aquí con ustedes. También hablo y puedo leer en español. When we talk about CAP, and we talk about climate change, it's unfortunate, right? It's unfortunate that we have to be in the stage of mitigation and adaptation. That's the reality we're in, right? And I want the next mayor to talk openly about climate change, to leverage that bully pulpit and work side by side with environmentalists to get things done. I mean, I can't believe that we couldn't get the energy benchmarking done. That's unfortunate, right? And I feel that the city is getting a little bit weak or lazy in enforcing all the climate efforts that were done in the last decade, and that's unacceptable. I think the next mayor needs to work with the community as well of San Antonio. And that means hosting town halls, going to the people, learning from you, all experts in the community. Yes, we have great people working at the city, but we also want to hear it from the activists, the environmentalists that are making things happen. I was just at the Guajolote Ranch last weekend, and I learned all about the pollution that is happening with the Edwards Aquifer. And that's unacceptable. 2 million people are going to be impacted here in San Antonio as a result. And City Council was not entirely briefed on this issue and the settlement of Metro Health with this Lennar Homes company. And that's unacceptable. And it's not to cause alarm or anything, but it's to cause proactive measures on behalf of the city government. When we talk about CAP, what I wanted to see is revisit and have a comprehensive plan and objectives that we can talk about open, and they being our North Star to get things done at the city level. Resilient infrastructure for me is a top priority. It keeps getting hotter and hotter in San Antonio. Enforcing the tree mitigation fund should be a top priority as well. More shaded areas in San Antonio. When we talk about public transportation, active transportation should be a North Star in San Antonio so that we can reduce the carbon emissions. I spent 2 years learning all about active transportation through Active NSA. Complete streets is not enough. We need actual complete streets. What I also want to see in San Antonio is be more data-driven with the information that we have in San Antonio at the city level and take action on those policies that are going to impact our future. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll come back to Mr. Alvarado with our second question, and I'll go ahead and read that. San Antonio's extreme weather, from colder winters to record heat, disproportionately harms vulnerable communities, like low-income families, seniors on a fixed income, outdoor workers. Yet the city doesn't track or report weather-related deaths. Southwest Workers Union is calling on elected officials to direct Metro Health to collaborate with the Medical Examiner's Office and first responders to create a system to track weather-related fatalities and create a public dashboard for transparency. If elected, how will you ensure this data is collected and shared, and what steps will you take to direct resources to those most at risk?
You know, if I was to sit here and tell you something, I would be lying. Okay, my mother always told me don't lie, always tell the truth. Okay, first thing, okay, what we have to do, if there's problems here in the city of San Antonio that's never been resolved, okay, then we have a problem. So first thing I would do, if there's not a commission, I will make sure that we make a commission with the environmental specialists, okay, because because I just came from a country again, okay. I'm gonna say Europe because I just transferred my mother to over here, and I was born and raised here. The weather has changed since I left. You know, it's cold. In the wintertime it's cold one day, hot the next day. Okay, so something's wrong with the weather. So then we think we're destroying the environment. We need to work together and with the environmental specialists, which are the ones that are sitting here, and we need to see how we can do to work to make sure that everybody in the city of San Antonio is well taken care of, health-wise, housing-wise, and everything. Because I know, being myself, okay, I'm a senior citizen, okay, and when it's very hot and my AC don't work, I'm not worried about me. I'm worried about my 2 pets, because for them it's too hot. But we have to make sure that we take care of everybody, okay? And, you know, like I say, if it hasn't been resolved now, there's an issue. And there's been an issue, and nobody's ever cared. So I care, okay? I care about everybody. You can't be my worst enemy. I still care about you. I want to make sure that you try it. Hopefully I'll be me, okay? But we need to find some way to see how we can find a solution. And the only way we can do it is everybody gets involved. Like Mr. Beto said, okay? Everybody needs to get involved and see how we can find a solution for this problem, because I don't want to read in the paper next week that somebody died because they were a heat exposure, because they didn't have no AC or they didn't have no heater, because nobody cares. They're only worried about making money. Okay? They don't care if you die. They don't. I do. Because as mayor, I will be I want to make sure that anybody gets hurt or dies or gets shot, I want to know about it. I want to make sure that I can report every day of what happens, so we can find from there, keep record of everything that's happening in the city, from death, shootings, crime, everything. I want to see a report every day in my office, because the military does it. They get a report every day of the incidents happened the night before, and hopefully that's the answer you're looking for. But like I say, if it hasn't been fixed yet, then we do have a problem. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Havrda?
So Phoenix, Arizona knows a thing or two about being hot, just like we do, and they have something called a heat registry, a heat and weather registry. They do that exactly for this reason, to track heat-related deaths. I say we can take it a step further and also try to use that data to identify our most vulnerable communities. This is where we can target wellness checks, AC distribution, maybe some more cooling centers, because that data can also be used to identify neighborhoods. We know pretty well, I think, where a lot of those neighborhoods are, but it's important to use that data to target, and not only that, just to show the city where we need to target those funds and those units. So they actually already do keep track of the deaths, and when they get those, they use that data, of course, to try to stop whatever it is that's causing that. So I think to mimic what Phoenix, Arizona is doing would be wise. Also to look at using the data to make sure that the policy decisions that we're making at City Council and the mayor are going to be serving those vulnerable populations. So not just that, but then going to those areas and talking to folks. What are you seeing? How can we help you? I talked earlier about things like the green roof on a bus stop, or I feel really strongly about community gardens. That's another way to keep our areas cool. And as a matter of fact, in District 6 to have a new destination park we just named, and it's one of the big features there is going to be a food park, right? What is it called? I'm blanking out.
Market.
Food forest, yes, sorry. I was thinking it's a food desert. It's still a food desert, but it's a food forest. And I think, especially in our vulnerable populations, like that one is an edge where we have to include those as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Ortiz Jones.
I think the three most important questions any leader can ask are why not, and where's the data, right? So really going back to what are the metrics, which is the why and the why not. The data, though, speaks to that as well, but I think it's really important that we're looking, for example, at ways we can immediately address some of these things. There are some innovative solutions, for example, the cooling pavement approach, painting the roofs white, for example. Some of these things you have to do at scale, though, to really make sure you have an impact in a community. Some of the other opportunities include, I know there's a wonderful research project underway to work with communities so that we, as a community, city, and county, have the data to understand, yes, in certain communities, certain houses, it is actually hotter inside than it is outside, right? And then dealing with the consequences, unfortunately, of folks, for example, not being able to pay higher electricity bills. So I think it's not just, how are we thinking about metro health, and absolutely accounting for the data as it relates to people's, whether they are experiencing extreme medical conditions as it relates to either extreme hot or extreme cold, but also how can we be thoughtful about, again, the longer term approaches, both in terms of, utility investments, but also what are those really common sense things that we know, if done well, right? If done well, that they actually have real impacts and help to bring down the temperature in many places. Common sense one, I was having breakfast with a community leader just on this issue as well, which is, again, when you look in a community and you see that there are not sufficiently enough trees. I was just with my mom, we went to SAWS and they were giving out trees and plants, and that's great. But if you were maybe more thoughtful and intentional when we planted some of these things so they could have the impact that we all wanted to have, that would be a better investment for our community, and really get after, again, the impacts that we're looking for. So I think this is really about, yes, collecting the data, but even some of these kind of minor modifications in how we're thinking and implementing these things would really get us much closer to where we want to be.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So a few things that the city has already done to start addressing this. We actually, with the work of Councilwoman Terry Castillo, and I see one of her staffers in the audience, thank you for your work on this as well. We were able to pass a heat-related illness ordinance, and making sure that people were able to look at how when people were taking water breaks. But with that also is a dashboard. It's a heat-related dashboard. Now, it's only heat-related. It does track heat stroke, dehydration. So there's 5 different things that it tracks. And so you can look it up on the city website. I don't think that it's been updated because, well, it hadn't been hot, right, since October or something of last year. But we have to keep doing that. That's where essentially we would probably be able to add that mechanism. But again, some of the other things are already tracked in there. Now, beyond heat, like, we also have to probably look at, I was thinking as we were listening to the question, wait a second, we track heat, but then what happens in an extreme weather situation if it's too cold, etc. So definitely a room for improvement that we would need. One of the other things that we have passed at City Council, and this one was under the leadership of Councilman John Courage, who I'm surprised isn't here because he would have been really proud to share that he passed his good night CCR, I think is what he called it, and making sure that construction workers were protected from the heat and that they were only able to work at certain hours of the morning, like early in the morning. My dad was a construction worker, so I know how hard it was for him to take water breaks. Because every time that you take a water break, you're afraid that you're going to get fired, right? Because there's too many breaks that you're taking. And so for a lot of our community, especially the community that was already scared to lose their job, they won't want to do that. They won't want to take their water break. And so one of the things that I was able to help with at the city was implementing a campaign to remind everybody to stop and drink some water, that it was okay to drink water because they need to keep hydrated. And then the other thing that I wanted to talk about is that tree giveaways, they're absolutely important. But unfortunately, what we find at the city is that trees die. And people aren't able to care properly for them. They're not taught to care properly for them. So I keep talking about bringing education back to City Hall. One of the focus areas is educating from our littlest ones. We know that there's a lot of kids that live with grandparents, and they are excited about recycling. They're excited about teaching their grandparents these new things that they've learned, and I feel that we're missing that opportunity. I do see someone here, I saw someone walk in from SAISD, and I was so proud that they're here, because it's going to take working with our school districts as well, and implementing these type of solutions from the learning and the curriculum, embedding it into the curriculum, so that they could start being trained on how to address this type of situation. Last thing I'll reference is the app. I've been pushing the OSHA app for people. So you can literally figure out like when,
So I'm coming from the people on what has happened to me. So I actually lived in an apartment complex that let me live in sewage water for 2 months. And instead of placing me in another unit or helping me, clean up the situation, they ended my lease and left me homeless. However, I want to say that we need to make sure that we have podiums. I know in Woodlawn, if you walk around the park, they have podiums where you can call for emergencies. So if we hold these apartment complexes accountable, these third-party marketing companies accountable to place those in apartments whenever they have an emergency, it'll help the community make sure that, if there is an emergency, they can get somebody to go ahead and hit that button. Another thing that I actually attended, it was the Deaf Mayoral Forum yesterday, and they were scared because, there was an incident that happened where a live wire actually tapped onto the fence. And they called EMS and the fire, but, they didn't let them know or communicate to the deaf person that it was a live wire. So I think making sure that we have those emergency, they're devices that, can get people or can get the device to say a word for the people. I had an autistic kiddo that used one, and it helped me so much because he would just yell at me all the time. But I think making sure that we equipped each emergency vehicle with one of those devices, so anybody that is hard of hearing, mute, deaf, we can get them to communicate their needs, as well as making sure that it's essential that the community understands what everybody's needs are. But that is my biggest thing. I'm an advocate for holding people accountable, and these apartments, there's over 600 apartments in San Antonio, and if we hold each apartment accountable, like, hey, this is a community, they have needs, and their needs need to be met, and we can build on that. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
The reason why the Southwest Workers Union are pushing for this system is because of workers, right? They're passing out in the sun. It's exhausting to be out there in this heat. My father's an HVAC technician, and he has passed out being out there in the heat. He's 63 years old, right? So the next time he passes out, it could be something that could become horrible. And I share the sentiment with Adriana, right? That's something that I worry about. And that's why they're pushing for this system. I'm all for it, 100%. But that's just the beginning, right? What we also need to do is have team members, employees, and work with our unions to report those bad bosses and managers that are overworking our people out there in the sun. That's unacceptable. Now, in terms of the system and the data that it's going to capture, I know a thing about systems because I developed the 311 San Antonio mobile platform that has connected over 14 city departments and has allowed people to report issues that they see in their communities, like potholes, flooding, missing stop signs, illegal dumping that contributes to bad air quality in many parts of the city. So I want to be able to also engage with 311 on this device, be able to connect this system in the back end to 311 so that people can easily report these issues as well as regular residents of San Antonio. But we got to go one step forward. So you have the city and then you have the county. You have a lot of people that are not incorporated to the city. They're part of the county. The challenge is that the county and the city don't work well together when it comes to systems. And we need to be able to integrate those systems to allow the Southwest Workers Union to better connect to the issues that are happening at the county level. Because you have a lot of the employers, like Jade mentioned, that are at the county level, not at the city level. And finally, one thing that I want to see and stress, right, is the type of reports and qualitative data that is being gathered. And that has to inform policy development at the city level. We have one challenge though at the city level, that the city manager and the city government at the city of San Antonio are sunsetting a lot of the innovation departments. The innovation office at the city level was sunsetted. And that's a disservice to the future of any type of development system or data-driven approach to policy making that we want to push as a city. What you need is also a leader, a mayor that can push that narrative and use storytelling about why data-driven policy is important, why we have to keep the latest technologies up to date, with our systems, why we need to push those technologies to our people and make them people-centric, not government-centric. That means that anyone can use them, no matter your age or education. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. We're going to go on to the third question, and since you just finished it, I'll start with you. Question, data shows San Antonio's 3 largest sources of greenhouse gas emissions are building energy use, transportation, and industrial processes. If elected, how would you prioritize tackling one of these critical sectors? For example, would you push for policies to retrofit buildings for energy efficiency, expand affordable public transit, or incentivize cleaner industrial practices? And how would you work to ensure those steps go to reduce emissions and protect frontline communities most impacted by air pollution?
Yeah, so I want to start with expanding weatherization. I want to expand the weatherization program in San Antonio. It's been a constant fight in terms of implementing that system in San Antonio. And I think the next mayor needs to push for that forward. Yes or yes. And it's going to be a difficult conversation. But I expect that everyone here in this room goes out and fight with the next mayor. Doesn't matter who it is, who's elected, but we must weatherize our homes in San Antonio. And we need your support. Whoever's elected, you all need to get involved. We need to weatherize our homes. The second thing I will say, I want to prioritize and enforce the tree mitigation fund. We're talking about resiliency. We're talking about how hot it's getting. We need more shade in San Antonio. We need to keep San Antonio beautiful, as Phil Harberger says. And that means that we need more shaded area in our sidewalks, in our streets. And that leads me to my next point, which is active transportation. I am supportive of actual complete streets, but we have to be conscious of the deaths that are happening on our streets. There were reported about 100 deaths on our streets in 2022, and 91 of them were related to pedestrian activity. We need to build walkable and bikeable communities, and that's something that I want to double down on the bike network plan. But when I'm talking about the bike network plan up in the north side of San Antonio, they're getting angry at me because they're saying that we shouldn't invest in sidewalks, in bike lanes. And that's a no-no because this is public safety. That's what I'm telling them. And I tell them also that, hey, this is the freedom to move. The car should coexist with pedestrian, bikeability, and public transit. And so I want you all to double down on this effort to making sure that we have actual complete streets. And as mayor, that's what I want to do. Because on the west side of San Antonio, where I have my campaign HQ, we don't have sidewalks. There's a generational disinvestment in many parts of town. So when we talk about $3 billion of that bike network plan, a lot of it goes into also funding sidewalks and infrastructure in many parts of town that need it the most. But the next mayor needs to make sure that that funding is going to the right places. And I will end with saying that, and I agree with Gina on the materials, right? We need better materials when we're doing infrastructure development in San Antonio that can not just absorb the heat, but actually fight that heat. And that's in the form of the streets, in the sidewalks, and yes, the buildings. Using better infrastructure and materials so that we can build a resilient San Antonio that can withstand the pains of heat. I know I gave you a lot, but that's how I feel about this answer. But it's gonna take all of us, again, to make sure that this happens at the city level.
Thank you. I'm going to, Mrs. McCullough, I'm going to put it this way.
I'm still a newbie, so everybody's words, they articulate very well. I'm like, oh, goodness. However, I think all of these need to be pressed, if I'm being completely honest, all these examples, only because, you know, being in the city and experiencing what has been put into play, it's saddening. I'm very sad on what has not happened yet. So I honestly, I can't emphasize more on, I know that everybody's been seeing how cars are just combusting lately. And that's scary because it's either they're not being properly maintained or they're just combusting. So it's more of holding people accountable on what they should do on the times that are happening in the community. It's colder and getting hotter, it's hotter and getting colder. We need to make sure that, you know, we're sending out the marketing like, hey, you want to check on these things and then proceed to the public. But these questions are amazing, and I do need to do a little bit more research, but I thank you so much. I thank you.
Thank you. And I acknowledged some of that earlier, but Beto, actually your current campaign manager helped lead with Councilwoman Sandoval, but I really didn't also let him know that I gave him a shout out. He stepped out. But Andrew Solano, good job, Andrew, as well. The three things that we all talked about. So that building energy use, absolutely important. And I was at City Hall the other day, and I think I was meeting with Ms. Debbie, or I can't remember who it was. But remember how cold it was in there? And I was like, oh my goodness, it's 69 degrees. And we were supposed to have it at 76, I believe, at City Hall, or maybe it's 73. But I was thinking, well, like, what are we doing? And I was checking. I know somebody one day did a news story, and somebody snapped a picture, and it was like super cold in there. And so again, bringing that up continuously, reminding people that we need to do that. But also with just our partners. There's a lot of companies that we see like lights on after dark. And I understand that there's some cleaning services that might come in at night, and that's why the lights turn on, etc. But how can we incentivize when we build new buildings that they make sure that they take into account how long those lights stay on, after how much movement, etc. So I do believe that innovation and technology is going to be critical in the things that we focus in for the future. That's for building energy use. But I also am of the belief that it can't just be one, right? So that the prioritization one might be the low-hanging fruit. I always like to have let's work on the low-hanging fruit. What can we achieve together first, right? So that we can feel good. And then let's tackle those harder things together. The transportation, and I do believe in complete streets. I do know that we need to focus a little bit more so that people could feel safe. When I got on council 6 years ago, I wanted to ride my bike to my field office. And at the time we had someone that was all about riding bikes and in our transportation department, and he kind of drove and he's like, yeah, you know what, Councilman, I wouldn't recommend that. And so I was like, wait a second, why not? And so he's like, it's very unsafe, you would need this, you would need that, right? And so that's when I first started learning. But guess what? The residents that I represent take bikes everywhere. And they take it to the Dollar General, they take it to these different areas. And so we do have to be very cognizant that people rely on bikes for transportation in a lot of areas of town. So definitely looking at that, looking at how we implement the transportation grants that we have been awarded, right, and expand those. But then lastly, innovation, I think, in terms of industrial practices. And I have a colleague that always asks about, well, how much water is this company going to use? And I love it. I love the fact that we have knowledgeable council members that are always top of mind. Like this just comes out just as second nature. As the mayor, you have to be able to give that person, if you will, the expertise. Thank you.
when it comes to reducing our emissions, and we've got to take an all of the above approach, I think it's also really important that we're being ambitious in ways that are within our control. I think, the project, the $30 million project that allowed us to have the largest on-site solar municipality, project, that is great because it allowed us to offset 11% of the city's electricity. So I think it's how do we bring down emissions, but how are we also ourselves as a city, but also encouraging those corporations that are here and those that we are attracting to similarly show us how are you working to offset the ways in which you're emitting in our community. When we think about the transportation piece, again, when we think about the 2027 bond and we think about affordable housing in that context, we should be also thinking about the ways in which we can really lean into the opportunity we have with the Green Line and the Silver Line to make sure that the placement of those affordable housing units along those main lines of communication and those advanced rapid transit lines can help with, one, the congestion as well as the public health consequences as a result of that. And the other one, this was the coal and natural gas. CPS's goal of by 2028 removing coal from the generation portfolio, as we talked about, there's a lot of uncertainty at the federal level, in particular one with funding for some of these things that we thought we would be able to do by a certain timeline. So as that funding goes away, I think this is a really important conversation for city leadership to have with the utilities to figure out, okay, what can we still do by the timeline that we initially discussed? And if that is no longer achievable because funds are no longer available to do that, okay, what does that mean for our timeline, right? I think this is where we look at all of the options, but then have the data to figure out, okay, if it's not by this time, right, this is what we expect to see potentially from a public health standpoint, but we think we can get there if it's not by 2028, when can we do that? And how can we ensure that we prioritize that with all of the other investments? So I think it's really important, as when we think about not just this issue, but we have a leader in the mayor that has dealt with these kind of big issues previously. At the Pentagon, we thought about climate change, mitigation, resilience, adaptation, constantly in all of our investments because it was something that we not only dealt with, but we dealt with all of our communications and engagements with our partners and allies. So this, I think, is also a natural way for us to strengthen some of the international partnerships that we have, where they are in fact leading in these areas, and we can apply those lessons learned. I don't think we're going to get a lot of leadership, frankly, on this issue from the federal or from the state level, so it's really going to be incumbent locally that we have the data and are being as bold and aggressive as we can be.
Thank you.
Thank you. So there's a number of policies that I've already worked on. One is including our data centers. We are like data center central, especially on the far west side of San Antonio. And those are large load facilities. And we don't have a policy for them at all. So I've been working on a policy for that will hopefully mitigate some of the negative effects of these data centers in our community because they're large load energy users. I also have an energy CCR. More to this point, we, under the cap, the thing we have done is spent about $30 million on putting up solar on a lot of different city facilities, and that's great. I don't knock it at all. But we didn't go into that building and do an energy assessment. We did absolutely no evaluation of what that building needed. It could need solar, I'm sure it does, but it could also need other things. There could be, air leaking, there could be a lot of different things. So we haven't done those at all. So I'm pushing that forward as well. We can start, of course, with our city facilities. And also encouraging building certifications like LEED. The part about transportation, I believe in complete streets. I'm the chair of our Alamo Area MPO, which is a regional group that we take funding from the federal government and the state government, and we put them towards traditionally highways. What I've really worked on is complete streets. They have of course they have vehicle lanes, but they also have protected bike lanes, not a line painted on the ground. They have those little armadillos or a curb, and then also a lane specifically for the bus, so that when you're exiting and entering the bus, you feel safe right onto a sidewalk. But I also think we need to talk about our trail system as real transportation and making it easy, not just for recreation, but for utility, right? For getting around in our trail system, to school, to work, to play, whatever it is. And the easier we make it for our community to use the trails, the better off it is for all of us. The last part is CPS. We need to ensure that, years ago I asked for a financial audit of CPS and they provided that audit, but we don't have any energy audits of CPS. We don't, we own them, right? SAS and CPS are owned by the municipality, by us, people in this room, and we don't get any energy audits from them. Just like we should do these audits of buildings in the city, we should do those for CPS and for SAS, frankly. The last thing I'm going to say is we have to take control of this as far as a local community, because you guys know that our president right now is attacking every major institution, education, climate, all of the things that we hold dear, and so it's going to come to our local government to be able to protect these things. So these policies are not just necessary, they're absolutely crucial and could be life-saving. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, first, on some of the answers that Mr. Beto gave, I agree with him, okay? He had some very good answers, okay? But first, okay, when it comes to, you have to excuse me, I'm used to speaking German, okay? Energy efficient homeowners, okay? How can you as the homeowners afford to make your house more energy efficient, okay? When you got people that just want to take you to the bank. I know, because you're a senior citizen. I know because I'm one, and they try to take me to the bank and I don't fall for it. I would rather do the job myself with my friends. Yeah. So that's one, okay? The city, any city building should be energy efficient already. Not controlled by every office, but have one control, and they control the temperature for the city. Public transportation, okay? One of the big ones right there. When I see a bus stop, well, first, who remembers the old Prospect Hill bus routes? The buses, there were no bus stops, there was no cover. Now you got people with these bus stops, okay? They're in the far west side, no covers, it's hot out there. We need to make sure that all the bus stops have covers so they don't, it really does get to me, okay? That they have some kind of cover from the heat. Probably, for the buses, okay? We have enough bus routes. Do we need more? It's up to you, the voter, to decide whether or not what we need, because this is your city. It's your city. It belongs to you. It doesn't belong to city council. You've seen everything they've said, and it still ain't done yet. Okay? It needs to stop now. We need to find people. We need to make people responsible for everything they said they were going to do, and they haven't done it yet. Okay, because together, working as a team, even with you as the voters, we can come up with a solution for everything, with everything. Before everything went privatized in San Antonio, when everything was run by the city, it used to be great. I guess now it's all about making money. Okay, and they're making money off you and me, the taxpayer. So we need to find how we can work together to solve all these problems here. That's not always going to happen. It needs to take everybody together. Like Mr. Beto said, it takes all of you to go out and come talk to the city council, because my door will always be open for you. You see, I have nobody to answer to but my 2 dogs. They run my life. I got 2 small dogs, so you'll love them. Okay, they run my life. But again, not the subject, okay? We need to find a solution together, because this promises is enough. It's time for you to get your city back. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and we have question number 4, and I'm going to start with Ms. Ortiz Jones, because I was at Tuesday forum when you talked about sitting on I-37 and rethinking your life choices.
That's
so
right.
Question number 4, and then we'll finish the table and go back this way. San Antonio's reliance on cars contributes to traffic congestion, poor air quality, and inequitable access to jobs and services. As mayor, what specific steps would you take to build a truly multimodal transportation system, such as expanding reliable public transit, safe bike lanes, walkable infrastructure, affordable transit passes? How would you prioritize investments in underserved neighborhoods to ensure that all residents can move around safely in the community, affordably and sustainably?
All of that in 3 minutes. When I think of public transportation and frankly mobility in general, yes, our city is large and it's growing, but sprawl doesn't mean growth, right? And I think we've got to be much more intentional about what that looks like, to the extent that folks, whether it comes to housing affordability, whether it comes to where people are working, but also just basic quality of life, right? And that's why it's been important for me to sit down with a number of folks that are dealing with this in the context that are there every day, to include, frankly, the bartender I just spoke to at Sings a couple of weeks ago. And I say this because when we think about mobility, it's not just the transit, but also sometimes that mobility is based on literally where they can go to afford to live, right? So I think about that in this context. Hence earlier I said, when we were thinking about the green lines and the silver lines, thinking thoughtfully about the location of affordable housing as well. I think it's really important that we're looking at, when we look at the public transit options in our community, that they're well funded. I think, when we look at VIA's budget, unfortunately it is well short of what the funding looks like in other major cities, and as a result of that, we have what we have. I think, again, the green line and silver line are solid steps, but they're well short of what we need. I think we've got to be thoughtful and be proactive. The green line, for example, not clear to me why, and it's not clear to a lot of people, to include the city council person who represents that district, why the green line, such a major investment, would stop at Steve's. Why wouldn't that go all the way to Brooks, right? You understand where that development is already, so why not proactively connect those communities? It's also really important because anybody driving on 35 or 37 in the morning, when you go south, you see all the traffic coming north up, right? A lot of folks working on the north side. So being thoughtful about those infrastructure investments is really important. This is actually also an opportunity, I think, to work with the state, right? When we think about the infrastructure needs on the south side, that north-south development infrastructure is important. But also, if we talk to any of those business leaders down there, South Texas Business Partnership, San Antonio Manufacturing Association, it's really also that east-west infrastructure that's going to be important to making sure that we're capitalizing on the manufacturing advantages we have there now, and can be thoughtful about the placement of an opportunity to bring further corporations in that area to really maximize our manufacturing expertise. So when we also are thinking about mobility, safety has to be top of mind. I think utilizing the data to understand where do we have some of the most challenging mobility intersections, if you will. It's unfortunately, yes, as mentioned yesterday, we had a conversation with the deaf community about some of their concerns. And we know when you look at a map, many of these challenges are concentrated in a couple of places. So addressing the safety needs immediately, but also thinking about those in the context of our investments.
Thank you.
We can talk about state and federal investments first. That's, as I mentioned with the MPO, that's what I do, get these investments to make sure that we have not just complete streets, but we're looking at lighting. We're making sure that not just highways, but also connecting roads to make sure that communities are being connected. And we'll talk about VIA's investment. I do have a real concern, and there's been a lot of concerns about both silver and green line. I know that it's the path forward, but it was done without a lot of input from the community. And so I think going back and really understanding the people that are currently using our bus lines and how are they being impacted. I'll never forget sitting in transportation, and there were two women that came and were worried about their current bus lines. So we have to make sure that all of these things of course, we're being sustainable and making sure that we're moving forward as far as green energy, but we have to make sure that they're useful to our community. So I want to just kind of start by saying that. Our sidewalk indexing, you all know that we grade our streets, right? You can see a street from A to F. It's a beautiful, well-done street, or an F street that's all busted up. And we were doing that over and over and over, which is great, and we would focus on the F streets as far as funding, but we weren't focusing at all on our sidewalks. We weren't grading our sidewalks at all. So a couple of years ago, I pushed the city to start indexing our sidewalks. If you see, I'm a disability attorney by trade, so I see the world in kind of accessibility. So if you have a busted up sidewalk for whatever reason, a tree or whatever it is, I see somebody in a wheelchair, somebody with a cane, even like a kid on a bike, not able to ride on that sidewalk. So now that we're indexing the sidewalks A through F, we're focusing our funding on those sidewalks that are not level and not even. So I think as far as transportation, that's really important. One of my big things is what I call the R word. Nobody ever wants to talk about it, but it's rail. We have to talk about rail in the city, and we have to talk about rail from here to Austin. The dream is rail from Monterrey all the way up to Oklahoma City, but let's start, let's work and pray and light candles that from here to Austin and back, we have some kind of commuter or high-speed rail. I'm on the Texas Rail Commission with Judge Travis Judge Brown in Travis County and Judge Sakai here, and we meet monthly to make sure that we're keeping that conversation going. Of course, the big problem is always going to be funding, but I said before, if we really believe in it and really want to do it, we have to focus our funding on it. And not just in between here in Austin, although I truly believe transportation is access to opportunity. It's access to education, access to healthcare, access to live, work, and play, and that's really important. But we've got to start the conversation about rail right here in San Antonio again. I know it was a big political debacle years ago, but it's a new day, and I think that the voter is ready for that conversation, so I think that's something we really have to look at. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Robles?
Okay, first I'm going to agree with Ms. Melissa, okay, she's correct. We can forget about federal and state funding, okay, because it's being cut left and right. It's like we're going back in history, okay? We might end up in another depression, who knows, okay? Are we ready for it? We as the city, okay, we have to learn how we're going to survive this, how we're going to work together so we can self-sustain ourselves, okay? When it comes to affordable bus passes, okay, for all these companies, employers that work here, we need to give them a special bus pass discount, because when I just came from Germany, okay, employers for the bus companies, they get a special price as long as they take for a monthly bus pass, where they go, they take the train or the bus, and they go to work. That takes care of traffic downtown. It does, okay. There's too much traffic in San Antonio. I'm sorry. I've never seen so. I thought Paris and Madrid and Naples were bad. It's bad over here, okay. The underserved neighborhoods, okay? I was born and raised in the West Side. And when I talk to my friends, okay, when I go to my high schools, they tell me, you know what? You should run for mayor because maybe you'll help us, because they forgot about the West Side. And then when I drive around the West Side, my neighborhood where I grew up, okay, and lived all my life till I left there, I see houses, I see don't talk about potholes, okay? Roads, okay? They've been promising to fix roads, okay? They only fix roads when it's election time. Like I said before, all this needs to stop. We need to get this city back on track. And with traffic, with buses, you can try and build a streetcar if you want to in downtown San Antonio. Streetcars is gonna take 100 years, because first, you can't make no streetcars downtown San Antonio because there's no room, okay? I come from countries where they have streetcars. They've been there forever. Okay, you can't bring that to San Antonio. You can make that bus line between north and south. Okay, but it's going to take a middle lane. You're taking away lanes from downtown, from the streets. Okay, we need to find a better way. And again, it's up to you to see how we can work together and get the city back on track again. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go Ms. Rocha Garcia.
Thank you. I'll start off by saying that I'd love to extend the transit passes. And I'm an educator. I teach at Our Lady of Lake University, and a lot of my students say that they would use the bus if it came more often. So that's one of the things that we have to concentrate on, right? Making sure that it's available and accessible when they need it the most. And so that might be the reason that they don't. I do see that a lot of my students sometimes only have one car in the family, so they're dropped off very early in the morning. I do believe that we have to expand those transit passes, but again, I think that we need to work on a combination of reliable service and also think about the VIA link and what that does. On bike lanes, I talked a little bit about bike lanes already, but we have to really invest in that, some additional more, and especially in the communities that are able to have access to live, work, and play. So those communities that, for instance, downtown, we have the Robert E. Lee Apartments. We were able to, as the Housing Trust, outbid Western Urban recently, and we were proud of that because people were telling us that they want to be able to have access to quality health care, access to where they go and work and where they go and play, and so that's why it's critical to continue focusing on bike lanes. But also the green emerald, and when we think about the green necklace, the emerald necklace that we call here in San Antonio, and we think of the connectivity, we think of a complete, if you will, greenway parkways, system trailways, but the fact is that it almost did not get funded fully, and that was actually just a few years ago. Unfortunately, when they decided that they wanted to stop, it was when Southwest Park, which District 4, where I represent, was still incomplete. So we made sure to fight for it so that we could have that complete. We had the 100-mile celebration over at Camargo Park at the trailhead just last year. But those spokes are going to be important to connect us to downtown, to connect us to other areas like Port San Antonio, which we know is growing. Then I also want to focus on the South Texas Parkway. How do we integrate the manufacturing community so that they don't put our residents in danger? So the southern part of San Antonio is growing. We've been focusing on a connector from IH-35 to IH-37 so that the logistics could be easier for the manufacturers, but not just for the companies to benefit. It's for our residents to benefit. We're having a lot of growth out there. We have a lot of communities. We have apartment complexes that are coming. In fact, we had groundbreakings for 1,200 apartment units, 4 different areas within District 4 in just 6 months. So we need to protect our children. We need to make sure that those 18-wheelers are not driving the same areas where the school buses are, where the ambulances are getting to the new hospital that's coming out to the south side, and that's how we need to prioritize some of these key investments.
Thank you.
So one thing that I have done since running for mayor, my truck broke down. So I had no choice but to ride the bus because my mom was not going to be my Uber. So one thing that I do know is that we definitely need to put more marketing out there and being transparent on what we're doing in the city, because it is the community that initially makes the choice what is going to happen in the city. Getting a city audit to make sure that we're maintaining those funds and allocating them properly is going to be something that we need to do. From where I grew up, we used to watch TV and then see all the commercials on what's going on in the city. We actually need to, I'm going to use a reference from the gentleman at the end, keep up with the Joneses, right? We need to make sure that we are keeping up with Facebook, TikTok, the whole nine. Unfortunately, it is very cringy, as the newly generation puts it, but we have to make sure that we're getting the word out there on what we're going to do in the city. As well as just allocating those funds and making sure that we are doing the affordable passes. I did go and speak to one of the transit workers that hands out those passes, and they're working off of 2 systems. Those 2 systems, one submits, a pass for a course of the year, and then the other one does the rest of the year. And she was like, we just need to put it all together on one system. So I understand the frustration, and it delays a lot of things, as well as the safety when it comes to riding the bus. I don't know about you, but I don't like being harassed when I'm trying to get to a place, and it's the safety. We need to make sure that we have somebody either riding the bus that can help somebody if they need, or get the transit police to answer a little faster. I am a child care provider, so as I'm going through to get to all my families that I need to get to, there is a hassle with, trying to maintain my little bubble and keep myself safe, because I don't know if somebody is going to be mentally healthy to not react if I look a certain way or something. So making sure that everybody feels safe while they ride the bus is going to be something that we need to do. I did talk to, SA Express, one of the reporters. He did state that the buses aren't coming how they used to. They're coming every, 45 to an hour and a half, rather than when they were 30 minutes to 20 minutes. So making sure that we talk to the right people and as a team work together to build a better San Antonio. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I authored an op-ed focused on the future of transportation in San Antonio. It's on the Express News. I welcome you to read it. where I work with some practitioners from VIA and Alamo area NPO to envision what that looks like. It's complicated. San Antonio is growing fast. By 2040, you're looking at almost 4 million people in San Antonio. So the question is not whether we're going to grow, it's how do we prepare for that growth? And infrastructure and transportation should be a priority. So I have several items that I want to focus on. Number one, I want to focus on mobility hubs. Mobility hubs have a low footprint when it comes to neighborhoods throughout the city of San Antonio. And they can provide walkability, bikeability, ride sharing, and bus service. But I think also we can reuse some of the existing independent school district buildings that are being closed down. And we can reuse some of them. There's about 4 of them that have good bones. And we can also provide childcare and after school care for the transient population so that they can park there, leave their car, their children can be taken care of, and they can ride the bus. We can do that. Many cities have done so. I'm confident we can achieve that as well. Of course, I want to expand public transportation in San Antonio. There's 10,000 students going to downtown San Antonio. And I want them to have the opportunity to use the bus, but also to experience the proximity to downtown, like the west side of San Antonio. I have a coffee shop on the west side of San Antonio, and it's really hard to access, especially for the students from Tafoya. They can't walk. So my next point is enhancing active transportation, which is incredibly important. I hosted an event with activists that are into active transportation. It was a bikeable active transportation event. And we had all these people telling us that the number one issue that they face is safety. So doubling down on the bike network plan should be a priority, and we need to enforce it. And the next mayor needs to be bullish on telling the story of why it matters. And finally, implementing Vision Zero initiatives in San Antonio. We had it. It was gaining momentum in San Antonio, and it has slowly disappeared. We cannot afford to have deaths on our streets. Houston already got rid of Vision Zero. We can't let that happen in San Antonio. And I think these are some of the areas that we can improve on when it comes to transportation in San Antonio. But also, I want to have more public involvement sessions on behalf of the Alamo area NPO. I served there for 2 years as a public involvement specialist, and we don't do enough. And you all can tell us what to do with those funding opportunities. So get involved.
Thank you. And that is the end of our prepared questions, but we will be taking questions from the audience. And the candidate will have 1 minute to respond to them, and they were going to be typed up on the slide here. There you go. Question number 1. Project Marvel has sparked debate about its potential environmental consequences, including impacts on air quality, green space, and water resources. As mayor, how would you ensure this development aligns with the San Antonio Climate Action and Adaptation Plan? And also, could you outline specific strategies to mitigate its environmental footprint, such as enforcing green building standards, preserving biodiversity, investing in renewable energy, and how you'll engage with frontline communities most affected by its construction in the decision-making process? That's a lot for 1 minute, isn't it? But we will try. So, Dr. Rocha Garcia, you go ahead and start with the rest of your tape.
Thank you. So I traveled across the United States. I've been to a Major League Baseball park for a game at every one of them in the United States. But in there also, my son really wanted to go to Climate Pledge Arena in Seattle, the hockey arena. And what they have done there, I have said it a couple of times on the dais, that we need to recreate what they've done. And so, okay, they're not going to suspend the Alamo Dome up like they did Climate Pledge Arena for me, but the reuse of that was critical for me. But beyond that, all of the features that they have indoors are incredible. Like they have the hydroponic plants on the sides. They are able to, everything that they use within the building was really sustainable, made out of sustainable materials. And so I was just so grateful that the city of Seattle had plugged so much into, or had just plugged in so much research research into what they did for this arena. And so I don't think that we need to learn. Oh, sorry. I forgot it was 1 minute.
It was
Sorry.
1 minute. And what was the name of that arena?
Climate Pledge, sorry. Climate Pledge Arena.
Climate Pledge Arena, thank you.
So Project Marvel, from my understanding, is a thought process. Nothing has been set in stone yet. However,
Thank goodness.
I do want to put a pause on it because we're not ready, to be honest. We need to finish our streets. We need to finish building our safety plan for the community. We need more community input and output. We need to host more meetings. We need to get more our homelessness in control. We need to get a lot of things in control. So as mayor, that is my biggest thing. I want to make sure that we actually do what we say we're gonna do. One thing I teach kids with, I teach them how to do stuff, right? I teach them how to save. I teach them how to do a lot of things, as well as parents. And I say you can't do anything until you save a certain amount, and then we can go crazy. But if you don't want to go crazy, then we can, you know what? I'm out of time. Thank you.
Let's do 3 minutes.
Yeah, I know.
So I feel the same way, right? I mean, with this project, we have to move slow. We need to pause, reflect on the impact that it's going to have on San Antonio and the surrounding neighborhoods of San Antonio, the impact that it's going to have on our water supply and our energy supply of San Antonio. If this moves forward, which again, we need to be cautious and we need to move slow, we need to work shoulder to shoulder with the Sustainability Office, and we need to enforce green building policies, and we need to make sure that everyone is included in the conversation. I want to have public involvement town hall meetings throughout San Antonio so that we can give our feedback on this project. I also want to make sure that we protect our green spaces downtown and in proximity to this project, and also the historical buildings in proximity to this project. And ultimately, we need to talk about water conservation, which is really important, and SAWS needs to be involved, and we need to have activists involved as well in the conversation.
Thank you. Mr. Alvarado?
Okay. First, I want to say I'm against Project Marvel, okay? Reason being because we don't know why the Spurs want a new stadium when we have a stadium they just built, okay? If they can upgrade, it's cheaper to upgrade that one and build a new one, okay? They have destroyed history downtown. I was born and raised here, okay? There's no more history downtown, and they keep destroying it, okay? The fight keeps going back and forth, who's gonna pay for it? I'm gonna tell you right now, okay, there's still gonna be no taxpayers' money spent or raising people's taxes, okay? They're gonna be the down and dry, okay? My office will, and when it comes to a decision like Fort again, like Mr. Beto says, my door will be open. It's gonna be open for everybody to come express their opinion. It's not gonna be behind closed doors or we're gonna do this, do that, and not tell the public because they're gonna complain about it, okay? It's gonna be open to everybody, and you're gonna decide, do we need one or not, or can the Spurs, I hate to say this, pay for their own stadium? Or they need to build it outside the city limits. Thank you.
Project Marvel cannot move forward without it being community-led. There's all of the talks so far, as you guys know, have not even been included your own representatives. We got into an agreement for a memorandum of understanding with the city, the county, and the Spurs, and we had to fight as council members just to make sure that the East Side representative was part of those conversations. And it's not the East Side representative, it's the 150,000 or so people that he stands up for. So moving back to, I do think, of course, we need town halls, things like that, but we have to be more intentional about that. We can't expect people to come to us. We have to go knock on doors, talk to neighborhood associations, go to where you live, work, play, and really understand what those communities are looking for. Not just the East Side that's being left behind, but of course the downtown area. We have to have a displacement program for housing. We have to have all of the energy efficiency items that you mentioned here before, but we need to have experts, specifically for the energy ones, we need to have experts come in and talk with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think the questions that are posed here are questions you need to ask about all economic development opportunities that come to our city. I've been very clear that talking about supporting or not supporting Project Marvel is premature until we have some answers to some very basic questions. How much it's going to cost, who's going to pay, and what's the actual benefit to the community, right? Because you know what, when I go to neighborhood associations, they raise it and they remember very clearly the promises with these other publicly financed venues, right? Mayor Cisneros, what was his promise? Hey, let's use public money to build the Alamo Dome. That'll make us competitive for an NFL team. The Browns are cool. That is not an NFL team. Nelson Wolf on another podcast, he said the deal that he negotiated was for us publicly financing the AT&T Center, we get 20% of profits of Spurs profit annually. He said, ask me how much we got over 20 years. Zero. So it's really important that we get a good deal. And frankly, also on my website, one of the things I want to do first 100 days is revisit that non-disclosure agreement policy that got us to this situation right now.
Thank you. All right, next question. Question two, okay, Ms. Ortiz Jones, this question is for you. As mayor, would you oppose CPS Energy's plan to convert Spruce coal plant to natural gas instead of investing more in renewables, batteries, and energy efficiency?
Will you oppose I think it's really important, again, with the uncertainty with the federal funding. Again, I understand the goal. We want to get away from things we want to do in terms of our energy generation portfolio. But in light of the reduction in federal funding to help us do some of those things, I would want to understand kind of where we are now in light of all the other changes and how, as a result of that funding going away, how does that impact our ability to do our whole plan, right? Not just one piece of it.
Excuse me.
No, I was done anyway, so we're good.
To evacuate or what? The next question is for you.
Same question.
No, you've got another question up here. Unless you want to respond to that. Is it okay to respond?
I can respond to both very quickly.
Okay, still have a minute.
Okay, I can respond to
Okay, you can vote.
I can do the first one very, very easily, yes. Pardon me, but we just have to fucking do it, right? I mean, we can say over and over and over that we're not going to focus, we're not gonna do it, but if we focus on it, we can get it done. The second is, the most important governance issue at CPS Energy is our board. I think that it's not so much the people on the board, although it can be that too. It's the fact that we as a community do not get a real say in who is on those boards, and that goes for SAWS as well. Yeah. You guys know that the mayor pretty much picks CPS and SAWS. And look, if I'm mayor, do I want that power? No, I want it to go to you, right? So it has to. I did introduce for the Charter Review Commission and to put on the ballot to elect our boards, our CPS board and SAWS board. Apparently that's against state law. So what we can do is make sure that every single at least council member brings up a community member and kind of puts them up for every board. I'm sorry, for every position. And maybe add some people. There's 4. There's only 4, there's only quadrants. So I think if we're able to do that, then we can all vet them together. Right now, we're just given one person and we get to say yes or no. And we don't have any say as your representatives in how that person gets vetted and brought to community. So I think that's a big solution. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. And the next question. Okay, Mr. Beto. During the San Antonio Report debate, you mentioned you wanted to be known for moving SA forward. Can you elaborate on what that vision entails? What developers are you working with to bring this vision to life? How does your plan ensure? Go back to the previous slide.
You need to answer that.
There. And how does your plan ensure progress doesn't come at the cost of displacing families or individuals in our community?
Yes. By the way, when I answered that question, I thought I had 3 words, and that's why I chose moving forward together, but eventually it was 30 seconds, and everybody responded with 30 seconds. I'll say, yeah, it was wild. I'll say this, you know, I have a policy platform. It's called Plan 210. I welcome to read it entirely so you can understand my reasoning, how I'm thinking about growth in San Antonio, but protecting the identity, culture, and the people of San Antonio. It's a balance, right? I'm focusing on economic opportunity, infrastructure, and public safety. When I talk about economic development, I'm talking about childcare. It's my top priority. Ensuring we create that safety net for young families in San Antonio. I'm also talking about investing in our youth, focusing on training, on emerging trends that we see in our economy so that we can have good paying jobs in San Antonio. Of course, small business support. When I talk about infrastructure, construction being at the top of my agenda has interrupted a lot of processes in San Antonio. But I'm the only candidate, and you can check everyone's website, that has a sustainability platform that is about 8 to 10 pages long. So I have a plan, look it up, plan210.com. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have some more questions. This is for Ms. Rocha Garcia. How do you plan to protect and create safeguards from the abuse and misuse of our water?
Yeah, so I'm on the board of the National League of Cities, and we've been working on this for a few years. And we have 4 resolutions that were introduced that we're actively advocating for, specifically water infrastructure, making sure that we were addressing the overflow, stormwater management, water infrastructure, resilience, purple pipe, and recently, like Beto said, we toured the Guadalupe Ranch. There's 3 of us that were there that day, and so looking at the PFAS contamination, looking at the 6 elements that were added that were supposed to be researched by 2027, to me that's too late. I don't know why we have to take an entire year from April 2026 until April 2027 to do something when we know exactly what type of contaminants are going into our water. So we're advocating at the national level. We hope to bring that also to the state level, and of course we'll be bringing you, we'll be keeping you all along, especially with that Guadalupe Ranch development.
Thank you. And Mr. Alvarado. The adverse negative health impacts from industries that have no corporate responsibility guidelines and laws need to be regulated. Will you push for corporate responsibility policy?
Yes, I will. Reason being, because you have all these companies coming over here, okay? They make some shady deals here in the city, okay? One thing is for sure, I'm not for sale and I won't be bought, okay? Yes, it will happen under my command. I'm sorry. Soldier for 23 years, okay? So it will be taken care of, and I will make sure, because I will personally make sure that it gets done. Thank you.
Thank you. Question 5, and this is for everyone, okay? Have any of you taken money from billionaire Randy Smith and Weston Graham? And secondly, do you support an end to sweeps of homeless encampments? And you have 1 minute.
Should we clarify the name? Graham Weston.
To the previous question, right? When we talk about developers, I'm trying to understand that. Whoever asked that, is that like infrastructure developers? If we're gonna grow this city, it has to go with people. Housing development. I plan to work with people first, not develop. I'm never gonna put.
Your business partner, the owner of Outstar Apartments, that's the leading slumlord of public housing.
I'm not gonna give that person a priority. And we always gonna prioritize people over business. Just to.
Well, just stick to the question.
And that was on a previous, yes. He invested a minimal amount on a previous technology product, of course. Yes, I'm not gonna say no, yes. But this is separate, right? If we're gonna move forward, because I wanna answer your question, we have to prioritize people over business interests. And I wanna be very clear about that. And thank you for bringing it up. And I wanna expand that conversation with you after this panel. No, I have not taken money from Randy Smith.
Yes, after this.
Yeah.
Okay.
But thank you for the question. I appreciate that.
So no, because I have been self-funding. I've been working 2 jobs and funding this campaign. I think that question should be, has anybody taken any money from David Starr? Because I actually lived at Avistar on the Hills, and that was the apartment that let me live in sewage and ate in my lease and made me homeless. I do plan on ending the sweeps of homeless encampment because we do have programs to aid in homelessness. And I just found out when I went to a district meeting, we have programs, but nobody knows they're out there because they're not marketed properly. So I think that we can get our homeless into those homes and shelters, not the Haven for Hope. There are other processes and other developments that are out there for the homeless. But yeah, no, I've been self-funding and my pockets hurt.
Thank you. No, I haven't taken money from Randy Smith or Weston Urban, Weston Graham. And I mentioned earlier,
We're getting to the questions.
and we mentioned earlier that we were able to outbid them on one of their properties, and hopefully we get to outbid everything else, so that we can state this. And then on the, do you support the end to sweep of homelessness encampments? A couple of weeks ago, we were having this conversation at City Hall, and one of our colleagues said something that was, to me, just very negative. And it had to do with people that had shopping carts. And I reminded this person that some people, that's all the belongings that they have. Sometimes when they're evicted from their homes, that's where they have their family heirlooms, that's where they have essentially everything that belongs to them, so that we need to be a little bit more sensitive to that. With that said, we need some additional money in that upstream funding of services so that we don't have the problem that we have right now.
Thank you.
I haven't taken money from those folks. When it comes to the housing sweeps, I think it's important that we try to address this as far left as possible, making sure that people are not needlessly being evicted or prematurely being evicted. The most affordable housing you can have is the one that you're already in. Ensuring that we're also making smart investments in permanent supporter housing, so that when folks are ready to be housed, we have something that is kind of that bridge until they're in more permanent housing. So that transitional housing is what I'm talking about, is really important. And as well, making sure that we are being as compassionate as we can be, making sure we're investing in substance abuse programs as well as in some mental health resources to ensure that these folks are in fact ready to come off the streets and have a path forward.
Thank you.
To the first, no, I haven't taken money from either Graham Weston or Randy Smith. And secondly, the encampments I do think need to stop, absolutely. When I was first elected, I went on an encampment sweep, and it was actually just one gentleman. He was living in a culvert, but everything he had in the world was in there. And he got a shopping cart, filled what he could, and kind of went on his way. And it was really heartbreaking to watch him just kind of, be displaced. So what I think we do really well is the Town Twin Village. It's here on the east side. It's low barrier housing. And I think we need to replicate that all over the city. Today I went and visited Thrive, where their young LGBTQ plus, IA plus community has 16 beds where they've been displaced or they're kicked out of their homes. And it was a great center. They have plans and programming for them for a year, and then to help them get on their feet, including apartments. But 16 beds. We need so much more than 16 beds. So again, we have to talk about focusing funding. I think Haven does a lot well, but we could do better. I think the model that Thrive has is much more inclusive. Thank you.
You didn't answer the question.
She did.
Mr. Alvarado?
Okay, first question. Like I said before, no, I'm not for sale. Okay, I'm here for you, not for the rich people. Okay. The second question really it's what do you mean when you say to end the sweeps of homeless encampments? You're talking about stopping it? Okay, I would say yes. Okay, reason being, okay, because these homeless are there for a reason. Okay, nobody has tried to do anything. If they say they did, then it's still there. There's been money allocated in millions of dollars for them, okay, to take them off the streets, but they give them into the safe havens, okay. The people don't want to go there because there's rules, okay. I'm thinking about, I'm working on a commission on how to get them off the streets, okay? And I know how it's coming. I'm taking all these ideas from Europe because they know how to take care of the homeless over there. They don't. Here they don't. Okay, they tell me that the homeless don't talk to you. They tell me they don't talk to me. I don't know, they're just dressed like me. And they actually talk to me, So,
Thank you.
Quick note, we're having some technical difficulties with our system up here, so we're gonna try to read the cards to the best of our ability. Thank you all.
And this is for, it seems like for all of them. Yes. Okay, the question is, what solutions can the city develop to respond to the drought? And I'll start with Mr. Ortiz Jones.
To this front,
To the drought.
Yeah. Well, I think this is an all of the above approach, but in particular, encouraging people to conserve, right? One, conserve what we've got. Two, longer term, we've got to invest in the infrastructure. 20% of the water that runs through SAW's infrastructure, we lose to leaks, right? That's unacceptable. So yes, we're encouraging folks to, or frankly paying counties to the west of us to not develop so that they can recharge, and we've got the Vista pipeline. But really making sure that we're being smart with the infrastructure that we've got. But I think conservation and accountability, right? Making sure that reporting process is adequate and people are actually being held accountable when they go against that pipeline.
Thank you.
A big thing I think we can do as a city is make sure that all HOAs, neighborhoods allow zero-scaping. Because right now they don't. There are some that don't, I'm sorry. A gentleman in my neighborhood has this beautiful landscape lawn with native plants and rocks, probably a better word for that. But it's really, really beautiful zero-scaping. And the HOA cracked down on him, said that he couldn't do it and he needed to have it removed within a month. Not only the investment that he made in it, but if we could all do that, of course, we would save water. So we were at a municipal utilities commission, and I asked our SAW CEO, do you think if we could implement more xeriscaping in the city that it would conserve water? And he said no. I don't know what what's all behind that, but I think that's a big way we could do it. Another one is to look at drip irrigation and how we can make sure that that's as efficient as possible, or in some areas if it's not being efficient, then we need to make sure that we don't have it. Thank you.
Okay. The schedule they have for water conservation, the times that you can water your grass in the mornings and the afternoon. Okay, there are too many violations out there going on. I know because I see it in my neighborhood. Okay, code compliance should be going around to see who's doing it, and they need to get fined. Okay, as for water conservation, okay, we get all this nice rainwater right here. Okay, I think that the city should give the homeowners a couple of trash cans so they can collect rainwater and use that rainwater to water their lawns. That's, rainwater is probably better, it's better for your lawn, because you see what it does to your lawn when it rains, it grows, it turns green. Okay, so that's what we have to do. We need to follow the laws that we have here in the city, because everybody's breaking them. I've been guilty once or twice. I'm gonna tell you, I've been guilty once or twice, but I'm wrong. And here I'm running for mayor and I'm doing it, so I stopped. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Well, go first.
Okay, got it. So I'm worried about drought, I'm also worried about conservation, and I'm worried about pollution, what is happening with the Edwards Aquifer. In our homes, if they move forward with this project, they're gonna contaminate the Edward Aquifer, which is gonna impact 2 million people here in San Antonio and throughout the region. That's something that I wanna flag immediately. The second thing, when we think about drought, let's think about recycling. Let's think about being innovative when it comes with our water resources. One thing that I'm looking at is the desalination project in the south side of San Antonio. I think these type of practices are gonna enable us to get smart with the type of funding that we have, the resources that we have at the SAWS level, but also thinking about the future of water conservation in San Antonio by using innovative practices today.
Thank you.
So how can we know that we're in a drought if we don't have the proper marketing? How is anybody going to know that we need to conserve water if we don't have the proper marketing? So I am suggesting that we place marketing funds where they need to be so we can know when we have to conserve water. I do agree with Ms. Melissa that we need to definitely, recycle the rainwater, put it back into our property, put it back into everything that is needed so we can, keep the grass wet so it's not dry. So, but yes, definitely making sure that we have proper marketing is going to help the community first and foremost.
I think that one of the things that we can do, in addition to working on getting grants, hopefully in having some grants at the federal government one day, but with the National League of Cities, we've been focused on making sure that we focus on purple pipes, rain barrels, cisterns, zero-scaping, and permeable pavers. So that type of investment in our community is going to be critical. How do we work with economic development projects to make sure that they do that type of investment for the future of our community? But beyond that, that green infrastructure is important. I think that we could do the easy things like have basura bash more than once a year. And so it just really irritates me that it's only once a year. And I'll give a shout out to Dan, who is in the audience today, because he coordinated the effort this year. But we need to have it more often. We get so excited. Our students get ready to help. Our university students are ready to get to work and help clean up the creekways. And I just think that we need to invest some additional resources into that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have a longer question, so we're moving to our cards. And this one comes from somebody who's been doing this work for a very, very long time here in San Antonio, and it's directed to Beto. So you sound like you're a great supporter for the environment, but the people locally funding your campaigns, starting with Nelson Wolff, have worked against the environment community for over 30 years. They supported Applewhite and Master Strategies against us to get PGA built over the aquifer. Other developers are going to put pressure on all these sweet-talking and different points on the environment and different pieces. And in the end of the day, the environment and the community is ignored again. So how can we ensure that the next 4 years are different than what we've heard before?
Yeah, that's a good question, and thank you for that comment, right? At the end of the day, Nelson Wolff and I were different people. We have different ideologies, reasoning, and a vision for San Antonio. There's some things that Nelson has done that I respect. There's others that I disagree with. Just like here in this conversation, we can disagree and agree on issues. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to be influenced by Nelson Wolff on how passionate I am about my environment, first of all. Second, my life's work has been dedicated to impacting government. From working in the Texas House of Representatives, US Senate, the White House, eventually the MPO, to building technology that services government. My work is dedicated to making a positive impact. And that's what I intend to do. And I disagree with many of my mentors today and many of my supporters today. I also agree with people that don't support me, like people that are on stage. But I would just want to make it clear that we're separate people, separate visions for San Antonio.
Thank you. All right, the next question will be directed for everyone. I'm going to read the question. Given that climate justice and environmental justice are embedded in every city priority, and they impact our city with every decision city leaders make, how would you guide the city to place environment and climate justice concerns? I'm sorry. Let me read that again. How would you guide the city to place environment and climate justice concerns at the heart of your decision making? And we'll start with.
It has to start with keeping y'all close. I'm an attorney. I don't have all the specifics and technical expertise that you guys have when it comes to climate and where we should be moving forward on climate action. So we have, I don't know how many, I think it's 30-something boards and commissions, and those are really important. But I think having regular meetings about the real impact that's happening on San Antonio, that the climate change is happening, and all of the different things that we're experiencing here, it's keeping you guys close. I think also having sort of your advisors, right, come and meet with the mayor, and not just the mayor, but the relationship that you have with your city council. I think that's really important. But we have to rely on you guys. I would have to rely on you guys to tell me how to move forward. That would also include how we move forward on the CAP plan as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Alvarado.
Okay. Okay, again, this goes to environment. First, if there isn't one, or if there's one environmental commission in City Hall, then I will make sure that added that the environment, the people sitting here that run, that do this, that are there, also part of it, okay? But at the same time, okay, the United States is behind when it comes to climate control. No, the Europeans are ahead, but we're lacking. I think we should learn from other countries. But again, it's up to you people here to tell us what you need, how we can do it, and learn from other countries. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Ortiz Jones.
Well, and I go back to the first question, one of the initial questions, which is really making sure that we've got a cap that has some teeth, right? That's why you're gonna have metrics, so that when we're making these decisions, we can talk about, hey, if we don't do this, we are not in alignment with meeting the metrics. If we do this, we may actually fall behind on what we're doing, and then hold ourselves accountable, right? We can't have these plans and have these exceptions based on what may be coming before us at the time. And frankly, also be very clear about the cost of not doing these things in our community. It's good to have goals and work toward those, but also be very clear about the cost of not making these really important investments.
Thank you.
Thank you. In 2014, the EPA passed the Financial Capability Assessment Framework for municipal utilities. One of the things that they did until 9 years later, which again I thought took over a long time, was focus on a procedure for evaluating ratepayer affordability, essentially, and also the utilities capacity to be able to borrow, etc. And so it wasn't until 2023 that they focused in and got rid of essentially household income, average household income, as being the sole dictator for being able to have some support for additional programs. Those are the type of things that we need to be looking at in San Antonio as well. I know Debbie, one of my appointees, is here for SAWS, and that's what we look at. We look at the affordability because we realize that when we think about those most vulnerable populations, for them, it is the affordability. For them, it is being able to do alternatives like splits for their homes instead of being able to put solar panels, which we all know that there was a whole report on that recently that shed some light on that industry.
Thank you.
You speak very fast. No, but I've been in the childcare field for over 22 years, and one thing that I do teach kids is common sense and how to get dirty. So I strip away electronics and I teach them how to go outside and do things that can help the environment. So I think maybe starting from home, starting in our community, making sure that everybody's stepping outside at least once a week. Will definitely help the economy as well as, the economic growth that we do have and we do need. So making sure, and I'm going to go back to this, is marketing. We need to make sure that we're doing the adequate marketing, making sure the community is definitely engaged, because we won't know unless you tell us. And then we can work with our team as far as city council and everybody in the district to make sure that we're maintaining everybody's needs. Thank you.
Can you repeat the question, Doctor?
Certainly I can. Given that climate justice and environmental justice are embedded in every city priority and they impact our city with every decision city leaders make, how would you guide the city to place environmental and climate justice concerns at the heart of your decision making?
Thank you, Doctor. Well, I think it starts with developing intentional policy. And it starts with consulting environmental justice advocates and experts and engaging directly with them to develop this policy. I think public policy works best when the community is involved. And I want to see that as mayor. And leverage the bullet pulpit, ultimately, to advocate on climate efficiency and climate action that can impact the community of San Antonio. I also want to support the businesses that are thriving in San Antonio, that are fighting for more proactive climate measures. I'm a big fan of Local Sprout and what they're doing with sustainability, for example. Or the previous question, Gardopia Gardens. As mayor, I want to incentivize that and leverage the microphone, the messaging, to tell the story of where we're going with sustainability practices, but fight for environmental justice agendas.
Thank you. And next question, and we'll start with Mr. Alvarado. How can we hold VIA accountable for removing all the shade structures at bus stops? Seating and shade should be minimal requirements for a bus stop.
I think I answered that question already before, okay? If they removed them, they were wrong, okay? Every bus stop should have a shade cover. And in addition to that, they should also have at least a water fountain, because it does get hot here. Y'all know what happened last year when that homeless lady died on Fredericksburg Road from dehydration? This is what the problem is. There's no shade, no water. We need to make sure that we take care of people who are here, because when I don't go to work, I'm retired, I'm sorry. When I drive around my neighborhood and I see young kids in the bus stop with no shade, you know, besides getting a suntan, mine's coming back finally, you know, it's too hot for them and they're gonna dehydrate, they're gonna pass out. This is what we have to think about. We have to think about the young and the old, but not only them, everybody. Every bus stop should have a shade, and I will push for it, because that really gets to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think we hold them accountable by making them put them all back. Not just the ones that they're replacing, but I completely agree that every single stop should have a shade structure. I'll tell you that not that long ago there was an area in my district, a business that needed some lighting, and we went to VIA to see if they would put some lighting in because it was their right of way, just like that. It was up. Now community is asking for shade structure. I have to pull teeth to get a straight shade structure at a bus stop that is the primary bus stop next to my main senior center in District 6. So it's not that hard. I mean, we have to do it as a community. We have to fight. But that's what we know how to do, and I think we can absolutely do that. Thank you.
This is fundamentally comes down to funding, right? And also we can say, hey, put those all back, and they're going to say, okay, well that funding is going to come from X, Y, and Z. So that's a conversation that we've got to have if funding is uncertain about. But I agree, we absolutely should have these things that are covered. I mean, I live in Monte Vista, so to see some of these things that are uncovered all up and down San Pedro, as well as there's also a bus stop, unfortunately, it's like right on Woodlawn. I don't know if you know this one, the train tracks, and there's that bus stop that's literally like drops you off at the train track. In general, we need to be thinking about the user experience as part of, you know, how we make these investments, the basic needs, shading and comfort, but also, you know, does that make sense there, right? And in terms of what is the best use of these resources in light of where people are going, how frequently, and at the time of day.
I definitely think that we should have shade structures at every bus stop. The bus stop that's right in front of the Pearsall Park, where I have my office, and we know that it's a regional park, so a lot of people use it. It's just in the broad sunlight, and so one of the things that we need to do is have a plan to be able to fund that, but that is going to require, we do have some new leadership at VIA, so I'm hoping that with a new change we're able to ask for certain things that maybe haven't happened in the past. But I also think that we should go a step further. How do we try to see if they could have misters of some sort? It just gets way too hot in San Antonio to just accept a shelter. And also when the sun, right, depending on what side and what time of day you're taking that bus shelter, the sun is gonna affect the shadow on that. So that's why I think that we have to do some additional research on that.
Thank you.
I think they removed some of those coverings because the homeless were taking shelter there and using that as their house. So anytime you would walk by, it was their house. You couldn't sit there. So I do understand why there is a need to take some of them down. However, when it does get hot, I know I dread walking from the door when I had a car to my driveway. So I just think that we probably need to allocate some of the funding to making sure that most of all the bus coverage is covered. The seats are covered and everything, just making sure that there are, you know, cool spots for the summer. But definitely I agree with Gina with going ahead and looking at the funding and where those funds are going to go and come from.
Thank you.
So as part of my policy platform, I do talk about resilient infrastructure investment. And when I talk about resilient, I'm talking about withstanding heat that is impacting us in San Antonio. So it's not just a shaded area. I'm calling for more trees to be planted across San Antonio, to have more shade across our sidewalks in San Antonio. And one thing that I also want to bring up is that the bike network plan actually includes shaded areas in the plan. And third, it's not just the shade, it's also proper lighting. This becomes a public safety concern. We need more lighting in bus stops. And that's a big issue that we're facing across San Antonio. One of the challenges that VIA has is that they don't have proper data of all the places that need the shading or lighting, or where lighting has gone off and they haven't replaced it. So what I want to see is also a data-driven approach where we can identify those pockets that need the shade and need the lighting.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That is the end of our questions for this evening. I want to thank each and every one of you for coming and spending time with us today and answering all the very thoughtful questions from the audience and our organizations. Thank you everyone for attending. I do appreciate that. And I wish everyone a wonderful evening. Be safe going home. And would you stay around if anybody has some questions? Okay. So, thank you so much.
Briefing before you leave, okay? Don't beat your cat, don't beat your dog, and don't beat your husband, okay?